Welcome back into One Winning Pod, where we made it. Got through the draft, got through free agency, mini camp, dead summer, training camp preseason. Now here we are, almost exactly, as of this recording, 48 hours from the kickoff of the 2024 NFL season.
I can't even.
I know, right? Isn't it crazy? You can't even, man. And, we've got back this week. Alec Plianis, we missed you last week, but we know you're heavy on your expeditions here. We're going to call you Dr. Jones, Dr. Indiana Jones, battling bees and bats. And I don't know if there's something else you've left out, man. But, sheesh, for a second there today, I was wondering if I'd be doing this podcast solo tonight.
I know, right? So for the listeners, that day we had bees. Bzzz. like we had a leak, we noticed a leak in a window, and it kind of messed up the drywall. So I was going to peel it back. And upon doing that, the second I made a slice, just unbelievable amount of bees started swarming out. It was about as bad as you might think it would look. And luckily it was in a room that we could close doors. So evacuated, only got three bites or so, or stings, whatever you want to call it. And it was just a little bit of a mess. My in-laws were over, and just timing wise, I was I'm probably not going to be able to hop on. I already kind of knew there was enough going on that night that it probably was a little sus. But I do want to extend, man. I was sad to miss the show where we commemorated Joe D. That shook me, frankly. He was a guy that I really enjoyed watching whenever I would go to training camp. In fact, had seen, somewhat recently, so to speak, and he seemed too healthy for that, right? So it's just another example that life is fragile. So hug your loved ones, even now, a couple weeks later, we got the news today of the Jacoby Jones and Joe D badge that they'll wear on the helmet. I think that's really great. And it gives you 2012 vibes, so that feels good too. So anyways, so that was that day. And then today, technically last night, we found a bat in the house, and we were like, well, how long have you been here, bat? So we didn't know if it had been here and bit us or whatever. So we had to go get rabies shots today, and that was a whole to do because you had to go to the ER. They don't give you the first boost at patient first. So it was a whole 4 hours or whatever it was. But it's all sorted. I don't feel too bad. Yay, vaccines. And nevertheless, we persist. Chiefs preview. I can't believe that the NFL season is upon us. I have the Orioles in my peripheral. I have been so sucked in on this race towards the AFC. Man, I'm just mixing sports. The AL East that I feel I'm not paying attention to the fact that, the Ravens are about to start up. But here we are. It's a great time to be a fan.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's always the most fun when both of the Baltimore teams are just, at the top of their game. Orioles been stumbling a little bit recently, but, catching the White Sox at a good time, they're just getting the bats healthy again and some good pitching. Hopefully it'll be a strong September for the Orioles as well as a strong start for the Ravens. Last September was okay. Chris Jones, I was reading on SB Nation's Kansas City Chiefs page. I don't have it up right now. I don't want to butcher their name, but he was getting interviewed about Lamar Jackson. He had nothing but good things to say. But Lamar Jackson had a little bit of better of a September in Jones's minds than was actually. I think he said that Lamar threw 4 or 5 touchdown passes in the season opener last year, and the Ravens went 5-0 in September. Neither of which happened. Lamar Jackson threw 0 touchdown passes against Houston in a comfortable win. And we know that the Ravens struggled a little bit getting out of the gate before getting much better as the season progressed and huge crescendo until they hit the wall that was Kansas City. So right off the gate here in 2024, the Ravens are immediately going to get a chance to make that game right, at least from a momentum standpoint of trying again. What happened last year happened. That Super Bowl trophy belongs to the Chiefs, not the Ravens. All they can do is look forward. And, what a better way to start the season than to immediately get a crack on the one team that stood in your way the previous year from your ultimate goal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is it's going to be a great way to start off the NFL season. I think as a third-party fan, I imagine I'd be pretty excited to see these teams. and lots of stars on both sides of the ball. I am frustrated that, again, this game is early part of the season, as NFL will normally do for competitive purposes. So I feel like the drama of this game could be even higher if it was right in the middle of the run. But it's a huge swing right at the beginning of the year, because you assume that you're going to be fighting these guys for the first seed potentially, and this could be a tiebreaker. So it matters a ton. One thing that's kind of interesting is they'll be probably doing the unveiling of a banner or something, and doing Super Bowl accolades at this game. So the emotions are going to be interesting from both sides, I imagine. I'll see Roquan foaming at the mouth to hit somebody, and maybe too much ring kissing going on the other side. So I'm hoping that we can get them. They started off cold last year against the Lions, who at that time people were like, wow, against the Lions, but the Lions were actually a good team. So I think that they're going to be beatable. And one of the notes we have too is Kelsey's going to his age 35 season. They've been pretty public about the fact that they're kind of have him on a pitch count, so to speak, at the beginning of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if the pitch count is ignored a little bit for this first game, but I do think that might provide us a little bit of a window, so to speak. This is a team that peaks late intentionally. They're really good at kind of layering things throughout the season and knowing the importance of the tournament versus the regular season. So I also would say if we beat them, I'm not going to feel that much better about it if we get to see them in the playoffs. It's a whole other ball of wax when that happens. But I definitely think it's going to be a fun matchup, and emotions will be high on both sides.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be an interesting season for Travis Kelce. Like we're saying, he's getting up there in age, and you look at some of the recent tight ends to have played for as long as he has. Age 35 is a time when these guys start to slow down. You look at Shannon Sharp's last season in the NFL was his age 35 season. I mean, he had a strong year, 700 yards, 8 touchdowns. It's strong, but wasn't quite, peak Shannon. Same thing with guys like Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates. Gates really, being much more of just a chain mover, not really a guy making big plays. Tony Gonzalez, I think, is the one exception. He continued to be his steady self throughout his entire career. Still, man, at his age 37 season, 83 catches for 859 yards and 8 touchdowns. That guy never slowed down. So maybe that is Kelce. Maybe that is. But I think you're right. Whether or not Kelsey's going to slow down this year, the Chiefs obviously the Ravens need this game to, get into the head of the Chiefs and, let them know that, hey, we can beat you guys. We don't just need that one game where, that timely fumble recovery by Odafe Owe is, basically the only reason they won that game. I think that the Chiefs know that if they lose this game, well, they didn't finish as the 1 seed last year. The Ravens did. They have to also think that despite all their success as of late, they still got to make sure that they're on top in the AFC when it comes to the Ravens. So I don't think the Chiefs are going to be going easy at all in this game. I think we're going to see a healthy dose of Kelce, and especially considering deja vu, just like last year, the Chiefs really don't know who their top target is going to be outside of Kelce. All right, so Rashee Rice is not suspended yet, but I don't know if we know if the door is closed on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's closed. I think they said that it won't happen this year, but it sounds like it's not happening. But the thing that's interesting about it is the team is a little hamstrung. Hollywood Brown is still hurt. He will not be playing in this game. So you have the rookie Xavier Worthy, who I find is a very interesting prospect, getting his first, appearance. And I think the nice thing is we have fire to fight fire. We have Wiggins. So you want to put fast guys out there. We have a fast guy too. And it would be interesting to me if we saw some sort of personnel acknowledgement of that, right? Where it's if Wiggins Wiggins comes into the game if Worthy's out there. Like, for sure, every single time he's out there and is lined up on that side. It'd be kind of interesting if that happened. I doubt that. That's not normally how they play those kind of receivers. But the good news is I feel like while they have added weapons and they're down one, I still think we have added weapons as well on our defense, and I think we'll be better than we were last year. Like, I mean, I honestly do think our secondary looks remarkably scary, and might be the reason the defense is so good this year. Last year we had a lot of sack production. This year that might be a little bit less, but what might be better is more turnovers in the secondary, or maybe the sacks come because of the secondary's covering so darn well. So I do think that's going to be something I'm watching for, is to see how they deploy their personnel relative to the personnel that Kansas City is using. And also, like, this is Orr's first game calling the defense. What's that going to look like? So those are two things I'm like super curious about.
Yeah, definitely. The secondary is an interesting one. I think that what you have is, like you said, you added some new pieces, lost some too. I mean, Millett's not going to be playing in this game. Ronald Darby's not going to be there. But, something that could really happen, one of the big things that hurt the Ravens in that game, in the AFC Championship game, was losing the turnover battle, right? Something that they didn't really have in that game, healthy Marcus Williams, which we haven't seen much his 2 seasons in Baltimore, but the little bit we did see, I mean, he was a turnover machine early in 2022 before, before that first injury happened. Something like that might be enough, to tip the scales a little bit in the Ravens' favor, because, I mean, I don't think anyone doubts Marcus Williams' skill. I could be wrong, but I think a lot of the fan base understands that he's a really good player, but he just hasn't been healthy for a majority of the games of his Ravens career to show his full skill set, which includes being a ball hawk. So that if we're looking at stuff that, is in our secondary that can be an advantage that they didn't have in the championship game, a full strength Marcus Williams could be one of those pieces.
Agreed. And Marlon Humphrey as well. He was clearly laboring last year, and apparently he was like the best player in camp this year. And he seems to be approaching this season with a maturity of an older man, right? Like, he's no longer a spring chicken. He knows that. And he, like, all he wants now is a ring. He's very appreciative of being healthy. This is kind of one of his first injuries he really had to deal with, etc. I mean, that's not true. I think Taylor's like peck once, but anyways, I think it was the first time that 21. He had an injury. Yeah, I think it's the first time he had an injury where he like was on the edge of playing for so long. It wasn't like, oh, you're out. It was, you're almost there. Trying to play through it. I think that may have been the first time he had one of those. But anyways, he seems to have a newfound perspective for like having health and enjoying the game. And he's playing better because of it. And that's all good. So I'm excited to see that. And then, you add in Nnamdi Madubuike and Odafe Owe and what's his name? Mr. Injury Boy. Always hurt. Why am I blanking on him? You know what I'm talking about. Second round pick.
I do know who you're talking about. You're talking about David Ajabo. David
Ajabo. There we go.
David Ajabo. Yes.
So David Ajabo is in the mix. I'm excited to see that because they have their rookie left tackle who's going to be forever tied to Roger Rosengarten and Suma Taia, and we'll see. I remember hearing that Suma Taia was more seen as a right tackle prospect by Jason from Huddle It Up Films. So seeing him at left tackle will be interesting. And I think that's a huge test, just like we're going to be testing on the other side. I know we'll talk about it. They have a vulnerability as well, potentially, of a young guy on the line that needs to be tested.
100%. And, I have no doubt in my mind Zach Orr is going to do that because, like you're saying, we've got rookies going to be starting their first game in the NFL this game. So do they. And obviously our fan base is a little nervous to see can these guys prove it? Can they go out there and be the guys that they need to be? Well, on the other side, hey, Kansas City's their guys need to do the same thing. Left tackle, obviously, incredibly important position. The Chiefs seem to have struggled at that. With as good as they've been, they have not been able to get a guy consistently to be year in and year out that guy. Didn't work out as well as they would have liked with Orlando Brown. They've had some other experiments that didn't last as well. Maybe this is their guy, but still, it'll be his first NFL game against one of the best defenses in the league. We're biased, so I'm not going to say best because, of course, we're going to say best because we're biased. But without a doubt, one of the best defenses in the league. Yeah, that's a tough assignment for them that you're putting your left tackle out there on first NFL game, prime time. Yeah, that's something the Ravens need to really test because there's a chance you can get some big opportunities there.
No doubt. And I think one thing that the Chiefs might be trying to test is our second year, but basically first time starter in Trent Simpson at linebacker. I'm curious, will they try to isolate Kelsey on him somehow, or test him in coverage? And then also, how are we going to line up? I'm still going back to that personnel packages. Is he going to be a 3-down player, or are they going to embrace the dime with all these DBs we're talking about, or are they going to just have Hamilton cover him like they did prior? I would probably say the last one is most likely, but I'm definitely curious about deployment because we just have different options this year than we did in the years past. Some good, some bad, but I think mostly good.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the answer is they've got a couple ideas, right? Because, it's not guaranteed that one thing you try is going to work against this offense. We saw it in the championship game, right? What they were trying originally didn't work. They got those 2 touchdowns early on, had to make some adjustments. That worked. The defense shut down that offense for the rest of that game. But yeah, I mean, I hope that we do get to see some of Trenton Simpson on Kelsey. I mean, the guy had a phenomenal preseason. I kind of want to see what he's going to be capable of. His second-year player, the athleticism that he has, maybe his experience isn't there, but he showed some flashes in the preseason that he could be a guy who could, help Kyle Hamilton out and take some of that load off and guard these tight ends. Of course, he has to do it in the regular season to be sure, but I think there's a chance there, and that's something that I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see some of that on Thursday.
No doubt. One thing I also noticed is that, we know that last year the Ravens were okay with allowing more running yards than normal. The rush defense wasn't as strong. And it was kind of acknowledging, you can try to run down the field the whole time. And, if you're able to run consistently and not eventually, get to fourth down, we tip our cat. But you're probably not going to. Isaiah Pacheco is going to be a guy to pay attention to, but CEH is not. And he's currently dealing with some PTSD, which is really sad. And obviously, I think just as a person, hope that he works through that, is able to play the game that he loves again sometime soon. But in the short term, it's not like they don't have options. Carson Steele had a really strong preseason. Peter was the one who turned me on to this guy. And then they signed P. Ryan. So they've got some options for running back. I wouldn't be surprised if we see P. Ryan take a McKinnon type role, as a pass catcher on third downs. So something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, absolutely. Carson Steele, that would be Carson Strong, the ex University of Nevada quarterback, is not making a comeback in the NFL as a fullback. No, this is a different guy. Carson Steele, undrafted running back out of UCLA. I'll admit he's a guy that wasn't on my radar prior to the preseason, but man, did he step in and make some highlight runs in the preseason, particularly in games 1 and 3. We'll see how it transitions into the regular season, but I do think that he's a guy that the Ravens defense are going to need to take account for. Like you're saying, I mean, Samaj P. Ryan, he's had an okay career. He's a guy that, if you need him to do things, can fill the role of running back, but, he's not a game breaker. And who knows if Steele is, but he certainly showed in the preseason that, there's some chance for that. I'm a bit sad to hear about CEH. I had not been had realized that, and absolutely, thoughts and prayers go out to him, that he can, get the help he needs. Mental health is obviously, such a big thing, and props to him for realizing that he needs to take that step back and take that time. But yeah, in the meantime, yeah, it's an opportunity for Steele to go in and get some reps and see if he can be a playmaker slash, another goal line weapon, as if the Chiefs don't have enough for their offense.
I guess let's flip it over to the Ravens offense facing that defense. What do you want to talk about, Peter?
What I'm really interested about is, once again, we're talking about weapons that the Ravens didn't have in the previous game, or maybe weapons that just weren't up to full strength. We already looked at that in the defense. On the offensive side, I mean, Mark Andrews could be an X factor in this matchup. He obviously played in that AFC Championship game, but it was clear to anyone he was a shell of himself. Heroic effort by him to get out on the field, but there was no chance for him to be a difference maker. He just wasn't that guy. He wasn't there yet in his recovery. Is he there yet? It's hard to tell. He's back at practice, which is good. Did he get a little dinged up in that car accident a couple weeks ago? I'm not sure. But anytime you got Mark Andrews on the field, even as he's getting a little older, maybe he's not quite as fast. Maybe he's a little dinged up with all the injuries he's had through his career, but he's a guy that if you get down, like the Ravens did in the AFC Championship game, Lamar Jackson has so much chemistry, so many games played with that guy. Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman are going to be important in this game, but having that guy that Lamar has so much chemistry with, so many games played, that's a weapon that they didn't have in the AFC Championship game, and I think that could be really important in this matchup again.
No doubt. That comes hand in hand with them maybe able to use Likely and some 12 personnel and seeing how they'll respond. I think that would be exploiting a weakness. They're down a couple DBs from last year. But yeah, I mean, obviously Mark Andrews, man, like I'm hoping that he has a huge year this year. Not just for the Ravens, but for my fantasy teams and, kind of bet on him. I feel like, he was hurt last year, let people down. His stock slid tremendously. He was kind of like much cheaper than he used to be, kind of with all tight ends, but I thought he was a little undervalued as well. So anyways, I'm seeing big things, coming that way. I think he's not too old. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I believe he recovered fully from this injury, and I believe that it sounded like from the press conference, maybe the reason he was out of practice for a while was legal, like there was investigations with the accident or whatever. So maybe he couldn't throw his body into car crashes on the field. They had to establish what happened to his body in the actual car crash. What a mess. But yeah, I mean, dude, this offense is super interesting. Second year under Monken. I think the analogy was so perfect that was used by Monken early on in the year, saying, they're building the house last year. Now they're doing renovations. What a great way to put it, right? I mean, if you ever moved into a place, you can probably resonate with that. But also just there's and it's historic in the NFL. Second year under an offensive scheme, you can see breakouts. Well, shoot, we had an MVP quarterback in the first year. Imagine what the second year might look like. It all comes down to the offensive line. So, I can get super excited about having Derrick Henry running the ball, or Likely and Andrews, and the resurgence of a healthy Bateman, and Zay Flowers in his second year looking better, and Tylan Wallace taking another step, and whatever. I can be excited about all these things, and I am. But I mean, let's talk about it, man. Offensive line seems like this will be the first test, and it's not going to be an easy one. You got the Greek Freak, George Karlaftis on one side, Chris Jones. I mean, that's a test. It's a good first test.
It's a front seven. Yeah, it is a strong front seven. Love to see Karlaftis doing well. I mean, we don't have too many of those Greek guys in professional sports, but it's always good to see someone of somewhat shared heritage of ours. Join the likes of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Nick Markakis and Mike Moustakas and those guys. They don't come along too often, but Yeah, he was a late first round pick for the Chiefs 2 years ago, and there were some questions as to how he would transition into the league, having not played football that many years. But yeah, the Chiefs have done really good work with him, and Chris Jones missed the little bit of the beginning of the season last year. Might have only been the first game. I think Travis Kelce made a pretty big public push for Jones to end his holdout after they lost to the Lions, if I recall correctly. But yeah, he's a beast up there, and admittedly, the rest of that front seven, they're not in a bunch of names that stick out to you, as guys who are really well known in the league, but they're really solid players. They're solid in coverage. This defense, the Chiefs, the Ravens had a really strong season last year in pass coverage. The Chiefs are right there with them, ranked pretty darn close in pretty much every category. So it's going to be a test, especially for guys like Voorhees, Falele, if they're playing major snaps, which it kind of feels like they will. Ronnie Stanley, we never know what Ronnie Stanley we're going to get. We really never do. I am on the record for saying that I have faith that Ronnie Stanley can put together a strong season this year. I'm not expecting him to be Ronnie Stanley from pre-injury. I think that's asking way too much of a guy who's had the injuries that he's had. But I think he can be solid. And look, this is going to be a great first test, like you're saying, against this front seven. Am I confident about it? No, I'm not confident about it going into this game. I think it might take a couple games, because there's so many new faces on this line. It might take them 4 or 5 weeks to start gelling, and start working as a unit. So it might be rocky, but I think that if the Ravens have a strong game plan, they can compensate, right? And they can do things that can help out the line, make things easier on them, be it, rollouts with Lamar, maybe some, heavier personnel packages with Henry in there. There's things they can do, right, to make it a little bit of an easier transition for these guys. And I think we might see a little bit more conservative play calling as a result of there in some instances.
I think you're right. I would say that's another thing I'm looking for. So we all remember, unless you shoved it out of your memory, kind of like that Miami game where there's the zero blitzes. Oh my God. Like they didn't know what to do with the blitz. Well, I think we're going to see creative blitzes from Spagnuolo. So, I want to make sure that we have that in the game plan. I'm hoping that we have counters for this, and like you were saying, Peter, the play calls or the checks so that Lamar can get out of these hairy situations and get what's going. I kind of feel like if they continue with the Falele experiment, I think that they will block sufficiently to give him an opportunity to potentially break something. I don't think it's going to be like gaping holes and like, just you can drive your SUV through it. I think it's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to be super clean, but luckily that's the kind of runner that he is. I think he could like do better with that. And then almost in a way, like those Voorhees quick losses are super scary with a guy like Chris Jones on the other side.
Yep.
So we got to keep an eye on that. I think it wouldn't shock me if we see a decent amount of Ricard in there, acting as a third or as a sixth lineman, chip blocking or whatever. Or maybe they use Likely or Mandrews in that fashion. Obviously, that limits their upside as a route runner on that play. But yeah, I don't know. That's something that if they look flat-footed, I'll be really upset because I think it'd be unacceptable. Like we're over here, armchair quarterbacking, being like, this is an obvious first thing to be concerned about. So hopefully they've got answers.
Hopefully, yeah, because, that if we're talking about the real X factor in this game, it's going to be Derrick Henry. And who wins that battle? Henry and the Ravens offensive line or the Chiefs front seven? Because that's what they did. What we didn't have last year, with all due respect to Gus Edwards, and maybe if they gave Gus the carries, maybe he would have been able to do it. I don't know. Edwards had a great touchdown season last year. It was a career worst season from efficiency standpoint, but he did have games. He did have games where he was able to break out and have really carry the Ravens offense, particularly in those games like against Arizona was one of them. But I'll be honest, I don't really know what to expect from Derrick Henry in this game because I don't know what to expect from the offensive line. I think that Henry can have success if the blocking's not perfect. He certainly never had an, all-pro caliber line in Tennessee, at least to my understanding. But he is older, and we saw some games last year where he was just completely neutralized because the line was there in Tennessee wasn't able to get any traction. Now, the other issue was their passing game was pretty inept as well. And, even with the Ravens, not having the strongest of weapons compared to the rest of the league, they're always able to pass the ball, even if we like them to pass it some more. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen because I think that Henry could go out there. He could have a huge game and carry the Ravens to victory, be that missing piece that they didn't have, or he could get neutralized. And we're looking at Lamar having to do too much to get the offense on track. It could be either.
Yeah, you don't want to see him getting in bad, second and long, third and longs. That's going to be miserable. So I guess we'll see, man. It always comes down to that. I have lofty expectations for this squad, despite all the losses in free agency. I look at the team and I think to myself, kind of classically, like, why not us? And the answers are pretty obvious. Like, the offensive line could be a very clear, like, this is why not us, right?
Yeah.
But we have so many answers to that problem. I don't know if they're good answers. I don't know if they're correct answers, but we have potential answers that I think by year's end, that might not be the question anymore. So that's my hope. I think it might, like they're kind of saying they think it's going to be rocky at first, and I do too. But hopefully it's better than expected. That's really all it comes down to. But I do think that these pass catching options and Henry might be able to put some polish on that turd if it's not looking good. And of course, Lamar Jackson. So keep an eye out. I wouldn't count him out just yet. I think it's going to be potentially a low-scoring game, though. You think about our defense and how stout they're looking. You look at our offensive line situation and, curiosities. Obviously, they have a good defense as well, even though they lost Snead and Edwards in the backfields, in their defensive backfield. McDuffie ain't no joke, And frankly, like, okay, McDuffie's no joke, and that can maybe knock out Zay Flowers, but, like, what about everybody else? Is Bateman going to be able to step up? Mark Andrews ready? Likely seems like he's ready. Like, I mean, it's just like one of those things. Like, it's not a gimme yet. So, I remain cautiously optimistic that this game is winnable. But I don't think it's gonna. I would be shocked if we left it being like, oh, we're the best team in the world. Like, we feel great. We beat them. They got crushed. Like, no, I think it's gonna be kind of close, and they'll probably feel nasty at some point, and maybe we just lose, like we could even lose hard,
Oh man. Well, with that, do we want to jump into our first score and bold predictions for the year?
Sure thing. Chris got him into us. I'll start off by saying the line is over under 46.5. Baltimore is given 3 points, so they're the underdog. Chris is feeling the same way. He says 20-24 Chiefs. Boo, hate that. And the bold prediction is quite bold. He says Simpson has 10 tackles.
Nice.
I hope so. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Like, I legitimately don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Kind of feels bad. Like, too many offensive plays, but
yeah.
Or
he's picking the Ravens to lose. I mean, so it's in line with,
Yeah.
If the defense is like it was last year, I mean, there'll be a lot of dink and dunk plays, and so a lot of long drives of like 8-yard gains. Plenty of opportunities for tackles there. So
that's true. Do you want me to go first, Peter, or do you want to go?
I'll go next. Yeah, score prediction. I waffled on this one. So my heart and my brain are telling me two different things. My heart says that, this this will be like 2013, except this time, instead of the Ravens getting pounded, it'll be the Ravens letting out frustration over a game they feel they should have won, and they beat the Chiefs 49-13, a la how the Broncos beat the Ravens in that year. My brain, though, says the Chiefs are the new Patriots, and they are an incredibly well-coached team. They've got some of the best players at their positions in the NFL. Sure, they have weaknesses. Every team does. And the Chiefs will win a close one, 20-17. So where I'm landing is somewhere in the middle. And look, I think what it could come down to, these are two incredibly evenly matched teams. I know that the Chiefs aren't going to lay down and take this game easy, but honestly, who needs this game more? The Ravens need this game more. They need to show that they are a team that can compete with this team, and they've only beaten Patrick Mahomes once, and like I hinted at the beginning of the show, it was a little fluky, right? So I'm going to say the Ravens win an ugly 19-16 game, and my bold prediction is that the Ravens will get 2 picks off of Mahomes, and my double bold prediction is picking up who those guys will be. That will be Marcus Simpson and Marcus Williams. Marcus Williams will get a pick, as will Nate Wiggins.
Okay. Love it. I thought you were going to say Trent Simpson. I started typing it, and then you said Nate Wiggins. So surprise. Well, we're kind of on the same page. I'm going to start off with my bold prediction. Bold prediction: Monty Marlowe shows up and generates a turnover. I don't think I have to specify. I feel like that's enough.
There you go.
Because I think he can do it both ways. I would say another like. What do we call? I don't know. Let's call it honorable mention. Bold prediction is that Lamar Jackson shows like with confidence he's faster this year. Like it's not really a bold prediction, but like it's a taste of the rest of the season. Like you can tell that he's faster. Like the weight loss thing is real. He's moving a little bit better. It looks a little bit better out there. Something to keep an eye out for. Score. I agree. Like I think Peter, you're on the right track. Like I think it's going to be nasty. I don't think it's going to be an easy win. There's been chitter chatter of Tucker walking out there and booting a huge kick. We forgot to mention, by the way, the most hated special teams unit on the planet on the other side. You got Ariza punting the ball and then Bucker kicking field goals and whatnot. I mean, I don't think that there's a more prickly special teams unit in the league, and it's like not even close.
I mean, first off, as much as I disagree with what Bucker says, I don't want to put a false equivalency here. What Ariza may or may not have been involved in, obviously, way
worse, yeah,
way worse. But I mean, along the lines, gosh, I'm still shocked Ariza's in the league. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really know the court case that well, but sheesh.
Yeah, just something that like. If the smoke is true, like usually the teams don't want to touch it. So
yeah.
Anyhow, the prediction I think I said you alluded to. I don't think this is going to be a clean game. I think we'll be behind at some point. I think we'll be sad at some point. But I can't help myself but choose the Ravens to win this game as well, like they normally do. I'm going to say actually that they don't cover. It's going to be 17-24 Ravens, and they're going to go and score a touchdown. They're not going to kick a field goal. I think they're going to score a touchdown to pull ahead, and that'll be near the end of the game. So that's what I got.
Wait, was that a win or a loss for the Ravens? You said 17-24 Ravens.
Yeah. The Ravens win. Yeah, they're it's 17-17. They get the ball last.
All right, got it.
Touchdown, Ravens.
Are you going to call who catches the touchdown for the double bold?
Tylan Wallace.
Tylan Wallace. What, triple bold?
Yeah. Yeah, just saying the word Tylan Wallace makes it like 5x bold. Well, I did pick him for my no sweat bet, so I'm just prognosticating it's going to happen. I think it's a great value for a no sweat. Can't say no.
Oh,
anyhow, Anything else you want to talk about, Peter?
Just I hope the Ravens can win this game, man. I can't stomach another loss to the Chiefs. It's beginning to become the Ravens versus Peyton Manning all over again, and I hate it.
Yeah.
Especially when we know that they can do it. Don't get me wrong. The Chiefs are an incredible team. They deserve the wins they've gotten, but I see no reason why the Ravens can't work to make this a tied series in the long run.
For sure. Well, we've done well against them in the beginning part of the year before. I hope that we can pull it off again. And the worst case scenario, you got these beautiful performances by the Orioles against a historically bad White Sox team to cheer you up. I mean,
my -7.5 alt line still in play for a second night in a row.
Unreal. Povich, man, 7-1, 7.1, 98 pitches, no scored runs. Walked out to a standing ovation. The crowd was going nuts. It's the second great start we've seen out of Povich. And, the stuff was good, too. And I've been watching that closely here. But, earlier on in the game, I was like, the stuff's good. It's not just, a bad team. It's good competitive pitches. So, I think the juju might be good, man. Let's, get the good juju from the Orioles, pass it on to the Ravens. We need the antithesis of Steelers week, right? Remember that awful Steelers and then ALCS? No, we can't have that, or ALDS, whatever it was, DS. We didn't make the CS. We need good vibes all week long, and hopefully we'll have that on Thursday night. Thanks so much for listening, guys. You can find us at OneWinningPod on Twitter. Email us onewinningpod@gmail.com. We appreciate you guys listening, as always, and we'll be back next week to talk about this game. And all together, go Ravens.